Part 1. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 1. Tusk, even though the other half of the face is ruined, this side feels smooth and tender. As soon as Shenyazi woke up, he saw a man with yellow teeth and a wretched smile standing in front of him, one hand stroking his face. The stench of alcohol all over her body made her almost nauseous. Where did this come from? And he dared to touch her to heal the devil. Shenyazi's eyes were cold, and his hand was like lightning, grabbing the man's wrist and snapping it. However, instead of breaking his hand this time, he actually grabbed it. Hiccup, are you awake? You're just in time to wake up. Hey, don't worry, brother, I'll be here to love you right away. The man couldn't wait to take off his pants. Shenyazi was horrified. How could her body become so weak? But now is not the time to think about that. She endured her nausea, and when the man pounced on her, she thrust into his eyes. Ah! Immediately afterwards, a swipe at the vaginal leg was carried out. While the man was in unbearable pain, she grabbed the scissors from the bamboo basket nearby and hit his temple. The man fell heavily to the ground. If she had her usual temperament, she would have to blow this bastard's head open, but now the situation is a bit weird, so she would just knock him out for the time being. Shenyazi frowned and took stock of the environment in front of him. It was a small room, less than 20 square meters. The furniture was very simple, even primitive, and the windows were actually made of paper. Could it be that she was kidnapped and taken to some deep mountain and old forest? Turning around, he met a pair of frightened eyes. It was a child who looked very young, probably not even 3 years old. He was huddled at the foot of the bed. When she looked over, his mouth dropped, and tears fell from his eyes. Stretched out his hand towards her and shouted softly, "Mother!" Shenyazi's mind exploded with a bang, and a wave of unfamiliar memories swept over him. She closed her eyes, opened them again, and fully understood her current situation. She actually wore it. The original owner, Yao Niang, was rescued from the waterside by Aunt Li in the village 3 years ago. After waking up, I lost all my memory. I had no idea what my name was, who I was, and where I came from. The name Yao Niang was still called by the villagers. Aunt Li saw how pitiful she was. Half of her face was disfigured, she was stabbed once, and she lost her memory. How could she not be pitiful? It's a miracle that she can survive like this. He took her in temporarily and let her recover slowly. After seeing that she could read and write, and also knew some medicine, he came up with the idea of making her his daughter-in-law. Life at home is difficult, and a wife requires a large dowry. Isn't it a good thing to get a daughter-in-law for free now? Although her face was disfigured, how could a country person pay so much attention to it? It would be great to have children. What's more, she is literate. Her son Li Dachun also agreed. But Yao Niang herself disagreed because she found out she was pregnant. The child in my belly is more than 2 months old. She had been soaking in the water for so long, and yet the child was still safe and sound. This meant that the child was destined to be with her. Although she can't remember what happened in the past, she still wants to give birth to the child. In this case, Aunt Li can't force her, but she can no longer let her live at home. He found an abandoned shabby house for her in the village, tidied it up, and let her live in it. After that, Yao Niang made a living by treating people and teaching children in the village how to read, and the people in the village gradually accepted her. More than half a year later, Yao Niang gave birth to a boy, Qingbao, who was huddled at the foot of the bed. After that, mother and son depended on each other until now. Most people in the village are still simple and kind-hearted, but there are still a few rat droppings. The man lying on the ground was one. His name was Li Sanjin. He was a well-known deadbeat in the village. He had nothing to do all day long and only drank and gambled. So now in my 30s, I am still an old bachelor. Seeing that Yao Niang was alone, he took a liking to her. He came in the dark at night with the intention of doing evil to her. When Yao Niang was struggling, he suffocated her to death with a quilt, and then she, Shen Yizi, arrived. Now, since she has become a medicine lady, she naturally wants to avenge her. But it's a bit troublesome to kill people. After all, she has just arrived and has not yet figured out the situation here. Moreover, she is not alone now, and there is a small bag. If they find her, how will she escape? After thinking about it, Shen Yizi dragged Li Sanjin out, disabled his third leg, broke his other leg, and threw him down a slope, pretending that he accidentally fell. After returning to the house, Shen Yizi looked at Qingbao again, feeling very distressed. Qingbao, don't be afraid, mother has already beaten the bad guys away. After getting on the bed, she held Qingbao in her arms and comforted him softly. Perhaps it was because she had absorbed the memory of the original owner that she also inherited her emotions and had a natural affinity for Qingbao. Smelling the milky fragrance on his body, the motherly nature was completely aroused. Qingbao hugged her neck tightly and cried hard. Tears smeared on her face and moistened her heart. Shen Yizi was heartbroken. She only regretted that she had been too gentle just now. She should have killed that scumbag. After finally coaxing Qingbao to sleep, Shen Yizi had time to sort out the messy thoughts in his mind. In her previous life, she devoted her whole life to medicine, and in less than 30 years she was at the top of the global medical field. But she is restless by nature, or in other words, she likes to seek death and challenges the impossible. Otherwise, how could she be known as a healer of demons? In order to find a cure for cancer, she found another way to start with the body's own immune system. Since external forces cannot cure it, what about the human body itself? After all, human potential is endless. Then, she secretly started human experiments, but just when she was about to succeed, the news leaked out somehow. Those terminally ill rich people, like sharks that smelled blood, sent a large number of mercenaries to her experimental results. Of course, they also wanted to kidnap her, the leader of the experiment. She unfortunately died in the chaos and flight. Unexpectedly, when I woke up, I was already a different person. Shen Yi knew that he was tired now, so he closed his eyes and went to sleep. If anything happens, let's talk about it tomorrow. Who knows, in the next moment, her consciousness actually came to a space. The space is not large, it is equivalent to the area of a basketball court, and you can see it at a glance. But when her conscious body floated over, she could feel a transparent barrier at the edge of the space. It seems that the space was originally more than this, but the rest of the space was temporarily enclosed. On the land that is so fertile that you can squeeze out oil, there are 3 circular pools the size of bathtubs, with edges touching each other and arranged in a triangle. The water in the pool is milky white, light green, and reddish. Other than that, there is nothing else in space. Is this the legendary portable space? Shen Yizi retreated from consciousness and wanted to try to see if his body could go in, but Qingbao held her tightly. When she moved, he would uneasily crawl into her arms. She simply tried to bring Qingbao with her. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 2. The next moment, mother and son appeared in the space. It's really good. In this way, she will have the capital to settle down in this world. If you encounter any irresistible danger in the future, just hide in the space. Ha ha ha, God is so good to her. Not only did he give her a new life, but now he also gave her such a big golden finger. This night, Shen Yizi was so excited that he couldn't fall asleep. But not only was she not haggard at all, but she was full of energy and refreshed. Nothing else, these are the effects of drinking the spiritual spring. After a night of exploring, she roughly understood the uses of the 3 pools. The milky white one is the spiritual spring, and the water in it is like the almighty fairy water. It has magical effects such as clearing the mind and improving eyesight, warming the body, beautifying the skin, etc. The light green one is the medicinal spring, as you can tell from the name. The spring water here is very powerful, so she reluctantly cut her hand. As a result, as soon as a drop of the medicinal spring was put in, the injury healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The light red one is the wine fountain. With one drop, the white water can turn into a peerless wine. With this three-color spring space, from now on she can spend as much time as she wants with Qingbao. Of course, she still understands the reason why it is a crime to possess a treasure. We can be extravagant, but we cannot overdo it. We must always stay alert, live a low-key life, and make a fortune in silence. Dreaming about the beautiful days in the future, Shen Yizi carefully pulled Qingbao out of his arms, stuffed his clothes into his arms and held him in his arms. Seeing him sleeping soundly, his heart was so soft that he couldn't help it. She leaned forward and kissed him on the cheek. Let alone children in her previous life, she never married anyone until her death. Now that she has a baby, she does not reject it at all. Instead, she thinks it is quite good. After all, she has not been able to find a man she likes to marry in modern times. There is no reason why she could find one in ancient times, so she is prepared not to marry for the rest of her life. But it's okay not to get married, she likes the baby very much. Now that she has a son, she only feels that her life is complete. After looking at Qingbao for a while, she finally got out of bed reluctantly after smelling the milky fragrance on his body. Shen Yizi couldn't help but be startled when he walked to the mirror and saw the face reflected in it. Obediently, this disfigurement can be completely destroyed. The left half of the face seemed to be corroded by concentrated sulfuric acid, a scorching black, and a scar with a rolling roll, looking at the thief scary. Although she had seen many kinds of diseases in her previous life, which were much more frightening than this, after all, it didn't happen on her body, right? Looking at her face like this now, she felt a little scared. It's a good thing that Li Sanjin could still be tough when facing such a face. She thinks it's the right half of her face that's responsible. With those clear and sparkling eyes, delicate white skin, and gorgeous red lips, after covering the left side of her face, she is truly a peerless beauty. Coupled with her proud figure, which is different from the elegant manners of ordinary country women, it is no wonder that she has attracted the attention of many men in the village. This has also led to many women who like to gossip in private to make trouble against her. The original owner won't argue with others, but Shen Yizi is different. If anyone dares to chew her tongue in the future, hung, don't blame her for being cruel. Although the injury to the face was a bit serious, she was able to heal the demon. Are she still afraid that she would not be able to recover? When the time comes, she must blind everyone's eyes to see if they still dare to call her ugly. In her last life, she was insulated from the word ugly. It makes no sense that I have become an ugly person in this life. When Shen Yizi washed his face, he added a little medicinal spring into it. He thought that the left side of his face would be better after washing, but it turned out to be exactly the opposite. Instead, it became more serious, and she could feel a burning pain. Yes, there was still a certain amount of poison left on her face. The contact with the medicinal spring strengthened the properties of the medicine, making the poison more poisonous and reactivating it, causing secondary damage to her face. After thinking about it, Shen Yizi felt like crying but had no tears. Looking at the more terrifying left face, she cursed the man who disfigured her face 10,000 times in her heart. Don't let your aunt find you, otherwise, haha. After washing and arranging her long hair, Shen Yizi went to cook. The sky is big and the earth is big, so food is the biggest thing. Qingbao is only 2.5 years old now. He should have been raised to be fat and healthy, but the original owner lived a poor life and was unable to provide Qingbao with much nutrition. As a result, the little guy didn't even have much flesh on his cheeks. At such a young age, Qingbao is already so sensible that it makes people feel bad. He never makes a fuss about asking for this or that. Instead, he will take the initiative to help her with things. Thinking of Qingbao in the memory of the original owner, Shen Yizi felt the same as his own, and his heart ached so much that he clenched his heart. No matter it, she will definitely pamper Qingbao to heaven in the future. Give me whatever you want. Out of the house, Shen Yizi took advantage of the morning light to take stock of the environment where he currently lived. This was originally an abandoned house. Although it had been renovated by the original owner for 3 years, it still looked very dilapidated. There are only 3 rooms in total. The main room is in the middle, the room where she and Qingbao live is on the left, and the kitchen is on the right. This kitchen was built against the wall later, with both sides open, barely able to protect it from rain and sun. However, it has been tidied up inside and out, and you can tell at a glance that the original owner is a woman who knows how to live a good life. I don't know what her original identity is. And why did she fall into the water while pregnant and be brought to Jiazhuang? 3 years have passed, why has no one come to see her? One question after another popped up involuntarily. Since she has taken over this body, she has also taken over the cause and effect of the original owner. How can she not repay those who harmed her? But now it's important to improve your life first. Shen Yizi first went to the river to fetch water and came back and filled the water tank. Perhaps it was because of the spiritual spring water she drank last night that she felt much better than she remembered. The original owner was very tired from carrying a load of water, but she felt fine. After the water in the water tank settled for a while, Shen Yizi poured a drop of the spiritual spring into it, took a ladle of water, and drank it. It's delicious, sweet, and refreshing. For breakfast, Shen Yizi cooked a pot of porridge, took out the only egg left, and made an egg custard. I went to the backyard and picked a handful of tender spinach and fried it. In the process of cooking, all spiritual spring water is used. Qingbao was awakened by the smell of rice. When he opened his eyes and saw that his mother was not around, he suddenly panicked. He put on small clothes and shoes and ran out with his short legs. "Mom!" He stood by the door and looked at the familiar figures busy in the kitchen, and his heart suddenly felt at ease. Baby is awake. Shen Yizi turned around and saw the little guy's eyes looking at him. He quickly wiped his hands, took 2 steps to pick up the little guy, and rubbed his face. Kissed again. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 3. Qingbao was a little shy when she kissed him, but he was very happy at the same time. Shen Yizi looked at his little expression and was so cute that his heart trembled. He couldn't help but kiss him several more times, and he turned into a kissing maniac. Qingbao circled her neck and giggled, exposing her pink and tender gums. The mother and son had a fuss for a while, and then Shen Yizi put him down, led him to the washstand, and brushed his teeth and washed his face carefully. Okay, let's have dinner. Shen Yizi held Qingbao on the chair and handed a small wooden spoon into his hand. Seeing Qingbao eating well, she immediately felt extremely satisfied. After the meal, Shen Yizi watered the vegetable field at the back. The water was mixed with spiritual spring, which would definitely make the vegetables grow faster and better. Looking like the weather outside was nice and the spring breeze was warm, she took the original owner's medicine to the yard to dry it. She recognized these medicinal materials at a glance. Tangerine stems, licorice, and atractalodes, are all relatively common medicinal materials, but they have a wide range of medicinal effects. She spread the medicinal materials in a dustpan and placed them on a long bench. When doing this, Qingbao followed him step by step, like a clumsy little duck. He was so cute that she couldn't help but hold him in her arms and give him a rub. The original owner goes up to the mountain to collect medicine every 5 days, and it happened to be his turn today. In the past, she would entrust Qingbao to Aunt Li and ask her to help look after it. But now Shenyazi doesn't plan to entrust Qingbao to others. After all, she is a person with space now. Wouldn't it be safer to put him in space? Shenyazi put Qingbao into the medicine basket and carried him out. Entering the mountain, she came to a cave that the original owner had discovered while gathering herbs. Sometimes she would be too late to come back, or it would rain suddenly, so she would come here to take shelter. In the cave, Shenyazi took Qingbao and disappeared. In the space, she prepared some food and toys in advance, placed Qingbao properly, kissed and hugged him for a while, and then came out. Hold a long stick in her hand and weed as she walked. When she saw herbs, she dug them out and put them into the space. When you are thirsty and tired, take a sip of spiritual spring water and your fatigue will disappear. Consciousness enters the space from time to check in case something happens to Qingbao. She felt relieved when she found him squatting there and playing seriously in the mud. Unknowingly, Shenyazi gradually went deep into the mountain forest, from the outer periphery to the inner periphery. The surrounding trees are all tall and strong, with lush branches and leaves, blocking the sky and the sun, and the rotten leaves under the feet have become thicker. If you step on it, you will sink in. In the past, the original owner did not dare to set foot here, but Shenyajin was not afraid. As long as she did not die instantly, she could enter the space. With the spiritual spring and medicinal spring, she could probably be saved from any serious injury. However, she did not become careless because of this, but was always alert to her surroundings. Digging up a Polygonum multiflorum plant, Shenyazi was in a good mood and stretched his body, when his stomach suddenly made a sound. Ah, so hungry. Looking at the sun, it's almost noon, so it's time to get some food. Arrived at the water's edge, Shenyazi saw a man in black sitting on a big rock on the shore. The moment she saw his face, her breath was suffocated and she felt like she was being shocked. Beautiful appearance, white face, bright color. The surrounding vegetation was clear and shallow, and the water was abundant. He sat quietly on the smooth boulder, and the golden sunlight penetrated the branches and leaves and fell on him, casting a layer of soft light on his handsome and godlike side face. It really looks like the person in the painting. Shenyazi was stunned for a moment. She has always boasted that she is not moved by beauty, but now it seems that it is not that she is not moved by beauty, but that the beauty that can make her heart move has never appeared. However, being fascinated by beauty only lasted a moment. Shenyazi quickly came to his senses. It was strange to see such a beautiful man in the deep mountains and old forests. Could he have been transformed into some kind of spirit? Goose Whitting noticed a line of sight that could not be ignored, opened his eyes, and glanced lightly. His eyes were pale. Seeing the woman staring straight at him, a strange look flashed in his eyes. He put up a blindfold around him and blended himself into the mountains and rivers, making it impossible for ordinary people to see him. "Can you see me?" Shenyazi was speechless. "Isn't this nonsense? She is not blind." Before Goose Whitting could open his mouth, he suddenly noticed someone approaching. He frowned slightly and raised his hand to take Shenyazi over. She threw herself at his feet. "You." As soon as she opened her mouth was covered. Goose Whitting held her whole body in his arms and whispered in her ear, "If you move again, I will kill you." The tone was light, as if killing someone was like crushing an ant to him. Shenyazi. Sure enough, beauty can harm people. Didn't she just look at him one more time? Actually want to kill her? Who knows? The next moment, a group of men in black appeared, and the leader gave the order, "Search." The men in black quickly dispersed and searched everywhere. They glanced at Shenyazi and the two of them several times, but there was no response, as if the two of them did not exist at all. Not long after, the men in black gathered again and reported to the leader, "Not found." The leader in black glanced around reluctantly and said, "Look elsewhere." All the men in black turned around and took the order and left. Suddenly something was stuffed into Shen Yizi's mouth. Before she could react, she was forced to swallow it, and then a voice came from her ear, "Don't move." Shen Yizi desperately tried to vomit the thing out, but it was useless. At this moment, Gu Swiding suddenly jumped into the air, as fast as an eagle, and stalked toward the man in black without leaving a trace. Shen Yizi only felt a flash of sword light in the air, and then all the men in black fell to the ground one after another. Only the leader in black dodges quickly and dodges in time, but his neck is also grazed by the sword edge, leaving a mark. He was not eager to fight. He quickly took out a loud arrow from his arms and was about to shoot it into the sky. But before he could pull the trigger, Gu Swiding came to him like a ghost, swung his sword, and a severed hand fell to the ground. Following that, the man in black also fell down, clutching his neck. The whole process takes less than 1 minute. Shen Yizi looked at the corpses in front of him and swallowed nervously. My mind was spinning rapidly, thinking of ways to escape. In front of others of the same kind, she will not hide in space unless absolutely necessary. But this man's strength is so high, does she have a chance to escape? Gu Swiding put away the soft sword in his hand, put it back on his waist, walked back and sat down again, adjusting his breath. He didn't even look at Shen Yizi. Shen Yizi felt that he might not be able to care about him for the moment, so he became bolder and slowly moved out. However, before his feet touched the ground, the devil-like voice sounded again, "Do you know what I fed you?" Shen Yizi stiffened and sat back silently. "What?" "Huagudan." This name is easy to understand. Does it mean that after eating it, the bones will be melted away? Shen Yizi firmly believed that any poison had an antidote. As long as she was given time, she would be able to cure the bone-changing pill. But now this person has made it clear that he will not let her go easily. "What do you want me to do?" Shen Yizi asked calmly. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 4. If this man wanted to kill her, why bother with poisoning her? Just hit her with a sword and her life would be gone. The reason why he poisoned her was actually to control her and use her for his own use, right? Her reaction was a bit unexpected by Gu Swiding, but she was so aware of current affairs, which saved him a lot of trouble. He took off his black robe, followed by the single clothes underneath, and then the thin white middle coat. In the blink of an eye, a handsome man with a naked upper body appeared in front of her. Shen Yizi glanced at her unpromisingly. "What are you doing?" Gu Swiding threw a white porcelain bottle to her. "Come here and give me some medicine." Shen Yizi then noticed that there was a hideous wound on his right shoulder, which was so deep that the bone was visible. This man is a man, and he didn't even frown even though he was injured so badly. Shen Yizi didn't dare to delay. He went to the stream to get water. After thinking about it, he added a drop of spiritual spring in it. Just think of it for the sake of his gorgeous face. Wipe the edges of his wound clean, and then sprinkle the powder in the porcelain bottle evenly on the hideous wound. During the process, Gu Swiding kept his eyes closed and seemed to be very relieved about her. But Shen Yizi knew that he was confident. After applying the medicine, she pretended to take gauze from the medicine basket, which was actually a space, and wrapped it around his wound. When she went out, she took the original owner's medicine box with her, and the medicine box was stocked with gauze, medicinal wine, and other supplies. When wrapping, the gauze must go around his shoulders and then out from under his armpits, so that it can be tied firmly. As a result, Shen Yizi had to stand up and try to stretch her arms. Although she upheld her ethics and did not take advantage of him, she was inevitably very close to him. Every breath was filled with his refreshing scent. Like snow, cool and moist, like ink, fragrant, and fresh like pine. Shenyazi really had the urge to hang on to him directly. Stop it! You have a baby now, how can you have such unhealthy thoughts in your mind? Gu Swiding was vaguely resistant to her approach, but seeing her clear eyes and serious expression, it was difficult to show anything. As soon as the bandage was finished, Shenyazi breathed a long sigh of relief and immediately stayed away. She was afraid that she would be unable to control herself if he continued like this. Male is misleading. Gu Swiding moved his arms and unexpectedly discovered that the gauze had a suitable tightness, allowing him to move freely without falling off. This woman is a bit unusual. First of all, he was able to see through the barrier he had set up at a glance, and he was also able to deal with his injuries so skillfully, without changing his expression and showing no fear at all. Facing Gu Swiding's scrutinizing gaze, Shenyazi felt a chill on the back of his neck and smiled flatteringly at him. Well, can I leave now? I can't. Gu Swiding spat out two words with thin lips. I have lost too much blood now and am in urgent need of supplements. I will continue to work the girl for a while. Shenyazi. She suddenly realized that this man had a bit of a bad character. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have wasted a drop of spiritual spring. He should be allowed to suffer a little longer. Gu Swiding seemed to notice that she was slandering him. Are you scolding me? No, no, how is it possible? Shenyazi smiled and said, just wait, I will get you something to eat. Gu Swiding then closed his eyes with satisfaction. Shenyazi dug up a few earthworms, pounded them, added flour and lingquan, mixed them into flour balls, kneaded them into soybean-sized balls, threaded them on a fish hook, and threw the fishing line into the water. Although the stream looks shallow, there are still a lot of fish in it. There is a spiritual spring as bait, so don't worry if they don't take the bait. Sure enough, soon a group of fish appeared and swam over, their tails making a splash in the water. As soon as the fish hook sank, Shenyazi felt happy and slowly pulled the fishing line back. She was originally worried that the fish would be detached midway, but unexpectedly, she kept lifting the fish to the water, but it still held on tightly and refused to let go. It seems that she still underestimated the attraction of the spiritual spring to these creatures. That fish is as big as an adult man's hand, and it looks very fat. Whether used for roasting or stewing soup, the taste is sure to be good. But one fish is definitely not enough to eat, you have to catch a few more. Shenyazi continued fishing, but did not realize that a huge danger was quickly approaching on the other side of the stream. There was movement soon after the fish hook was put down. Shenyazi pulled it. Oh, it's heavy enough, this is definitely a big guy. But before she had time to be happy, her whole body was dragged forward by the big fish. Ah! Just when she thought she would fall into the water, a body suddenly pressed against her back, and a big hand held her hand and helped her slowly pull up the big fish. What a big fish! It was as long as her arm. Shenyazi was about to untie the fish when suddenly a strong force pushed her aside, followed by a gust of fishy wind whizzing past her head. When she saw it, she was stunned. A beast as big as a calf was grinning towards her. It looks like a leopard, but it has a horn on the top of its head and 5 tails trailing behind its butt. The fiery red fur is shiny and shiny, giving people full visual impact. The more Shenyazi looked at it, the more familiar it became. He suddenly remembered, isn't this the Xiong mentioned in the classic of mountains and seas? There is a beast in Zhangyi Mountain. Its shape is like a red leopard, with 5 tails and 1 horn. Its sound is like hitting a stone. Its name is Xiong. Although she has never seen the real thing, this kind of beast often appears in games and animations. Gu Swiding stood in front of her. Stay there. Shenyazi quickly hid behind a big tree, ready to enter the space at any time. The ferocious beast roared at Gu Swiding. The sound really sounded like it was being struck on a stone. Then it flashed and was in front of Gu Swiding in the blink of an eye. The speed is so fast. Shenyazi, a melon eater, said. However, Goose Whitting was not a vegetarian, and he avoided it in a flash. Unexpectedly, the target of the ferocious beast was not him, but a few earthworm that were knocked over on the ground. It ate the meatballs with one roll of its tongue, and licked its tongue as if aftertaste. An idea flashed in Shenyazi's mind. Could it be that this strange beast was attracted by the spiritual spring? It seems that she must use it with caution in the future. A few the size of soybeans were not enough for the ferocious beast to fill its teeth, so it turned its head and locked onto Shenyazi. This human being exudes an equally alluring smell. Being stared at by the ferocious beast's two dark green vertical pupils, Shenyazi's heart pounded. Her eyesight blurred, and before she had time to react, she was thrown to the ground by the ferocious beast. Then, it stuck out its tongue and licked her hand wildly. Mom! Who will save her? Shenyazi cast a look at Goose Whitting asking for help, but he did not move and stood aside looking thoughtful. This man who is willing to die without saving his life. She remembered him. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 5. In order to verify his guess, Shenyazi condensed a drop of spiritual spring on his fingertips, and saw the beast's eyes suddenly brightened, and it licked even more vigorously. Sure enough. Being licked, Shenyazi was not afraid anymore and tentatively touched the beast's head. The beast glanced at her, but did not refuse and continued to lick her hand. Looking closely, Shenyazi found this ferocious beast even more stunning. The fiery red soft hair is very comfortable to touch, and the jade-white horn on the head looks like it is carved from snow-white jade. Now, she didn't want the ferocious beast to be killed. Of course, provided it doesn't eat her. Goose Whitting became more and more surprised when he looked at Shenyazi, who was getting along quite harmoniously with the ferocious beast. This woman is so secretive that even ferocious beasts are submissive to her. Shenyazi's right hand was really tired, so he switched to his left hand. Using the beast's shield, a spiritual spring condensed from his fingertips and was brought to its mouth. Perhaps it was because he had eaten so many spiritual springs from her that the ferocious beast's attitude towards her was completely different. When he looked at her, there was no longer a hint of ferocity in his eyes, but instead they were full of satisfaction and pleasure. It's weird and cute. It would be great if I could take him home and raise him. Shenyazi suddenly came up with a bold idea. While the ferocious beast kept licking her hand, she was not idle, testing its bottom line step by step, and her movements of stroking it became more and more bold. The ferocious beast was obviously very comfortable with her touch, and finally even lay down in front of her, exposing its snow-white soft belly. Apparently, it has completely let down its guard against her. Shenyazi finally stretched out her claws to the horn she had coveted for a long time. Unexpectedly, she touched it, and the ferocious beast suddenly jumped up, growled at her, and then ran away, ran away, ran away. Hey, come back. After eating so much spiritual spring from me, I actually slapped my and left. No, a beast? Seeing her confused look, Goose Whitting couldn't help but chuckle and said leisurely, "Do you know what the horn of the ferocious beast is?" "What is it?" "Probably, it's equivalent to a person's private place." Shenyazi. Looking at the hand that touched the beast's horn again, her expression was hard to describe. She quickly rushed to the water's edge and scrubbed for a long time. After the ferocious beast episode, Shenyazi got food honestly. Afraid of attracting any strange things again, she didn't dare to use the spiritual spring to fish anymore, so she had already caught 2, which was enough for them to eat. After finishing the 2 fish, she skewered the fish on a branch and grilled them first. When both sides were golden brown and smelled of burnt aroma, she put the whole fish into the pot and cooked it. The pot was also brought out with the help of a medicine basket, as well as various seasonings and so on. She had brought all the ingredients, and it was very convenient to put them in the space anyway. Goose Whitting saw her constantly taking things out of the medicine basket, and couldn't help but look at the medicine basket twice, as if wondering why she had everything with her. In order to dispel his doubts, Shenyazi explained a few sentences. I am a doctor who goes into the mountains to collect medicine. Sometimes I stay in the mountains for 3 to 5 days. In order not to starve to death, I bring these things with me. Look, it just comes in handy now. In this way, Goose Whitting withdrew his gaze. I don't know if I have completely let go of my doubts. While the big fish was cooking in the pot, Shenyazi picked some wild vegetables and mushrooms nearby and threw them in while they were boiling. Finally, he couldn't help but add a drop of spiritual spring. If it is cooked in food, it shouldn't attract any strange creatures, right? The soup slowly turned into a thick milky white color, with 2 grilled fish, 1 large and 1 small, lying in it. Beside them were juicy wild vegetables and cute mushrooms. A delicious smell comes out. The fragrance is so fragrant that I can't help but smell it deeply. Even Goose Whitting, who has never been very fond of food, couldn't help but feel restless. Shenyazi was still thinking about Qingbao in the space. He quietly filled a bowl of fish soup with a few pieces of tender belly meat. He put it into the space and floated his consciousness in front of Qingbao. Baby, mother. I've made fish soup, come over and drink it. Qingbao wanted to throw himself into her arms, but he missed it and lay on the ground in a daze. Shenyazi felt distressed and amused at the same time. Baby, mother can't hold you now. You can drink the soup by yourself. Be careful of getting burnt. Although Qingbao didn't understand why, he felt relieved when he could see his mother and hear her voice. He picked up a small spoon, sat on the pony, and drank the fish soup obediently. Eat with gusto. Shenyazi looked at it for a while, and then his consciousness returned. The fish soup in the pot was bubbling and steaming. Okay, come and eat, she shouted to Goose Whitting. Goose Whitting straightened his clothes, and then Shiren walked over with a pair of long legs and sat down on the stone opposite her. Here Shenyazi handed over a bowl and a pair of chopsticks. She cut them all temporarily from tree branches. Although it doesn't look very good, it's good as long as it works. This was the first time for Goose Whitting to eat like this. Before, in the wild, he either ate dry food or roasted prey. Now sitting around the pot drinking fish soup like this, he couldn't help but feel a novel and weird feeling, but he didn't hate it. As soon as he took the fish soup into his mouth, his eyes suddenly brightened up and he silently sped up his movements. It seems that his decision to let this woman stay was the right one. The fish soup in the bowl was already delicious enough, and coupled with the magnificent beauty of the man opposite him, Shenyazi felt that he was really beautiful to death. The whole process was in a state of dizziness. After dinner, Goose Whitting put down his bowl and said, "You must take the antidote to the Huagudan once every 12 hours. Come over at this time tomorrow and I will give you the antidote." Shenyazi secretly grinned at his teeth, but his face showed a look of joy. Okay. After washing the pots and cleaning up the traces of cooking, Shenyazi said hello and left. But I have made up my mind. Do you still want me to come over and enslave you? Beautiful thought. I will dissolve the bone transforming pill when I get back. Shenyazi continued to collect herbs. She knew a prescription for rejuvenating the skin, called Huan Rong cream, which could be used to heal scars on the face and restore the appearance. It's just that there are 3 kinds of medicine in it that are difficult to get. 100-year-old wild tiger bone powder. 1000-year-old Polygonum multiflorum. And the elixir Pinjiang Hua. The first 2 are okay. Although they are difficult, there are traces to follow. The last one she had only heard of in name and had never seen in real form. It is not even certain whether it exists. As for where this recipe came from, she also felt inexplicable, as if it had always been in her mind, but she suddenly remembered it. However, in order to restore her appearance, she must find all the medicine no matter how difficult it is. The afternoon passed and Shen Yazi's harvest was still very gratifying, but none of the 3 medicinal materials she was looking for were found. Seeing that it was getting dark, she decided to go home. At the foot of the mountain, Shen Yazi took Qingbao out of the space and carried him home. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 6. What a slut, you rotten-hearted bitch, my son has been unlucky for 8 lifetimes before being entangled with you, whoever you harmed. Why did it happen to be my Sanjin? My old lady has finally managed to bring me Sanjin up, so she points to him to carry on the family lineage of my old Li family. But you, a vicious slut, actually ruined the foundation of my Sanjin. My old lady is not done with you anymore. Shen Yazi carried Qingbao to the door of his house, and saw a circle of people outside. In the center of the crowd, a woman in her 50s was sitting on the ground crying, cursing, and beating the ground rhythmically with her hands. What's happening here? Please give in, what are you doing around my door? Seeing the rightful owner coming, the melon eaters, who were holding bowls and watching the excitement, hurriedly moved out of the way. Shen Yazi walked over and saw that the yard was in a mess, and all the medicinal materials had been knocked to the ground, and he felt a fire in his heart. Grandma Wang, who was sitting on the ground, suddenly stood up and rushed over to give her a slap in the face. Shen Yazi held Qingbao and hid aside. He was afraid that Qingbao would be accidentally injured, so he put him down and blocked him behind him. Little bitch, you with an itchy pussy, how dare you hide? Today I have to peel off a layer of your skin. While Shen Yazi was looking after Qingbao, Mrs. Wang rushed over and grabbed her hair, and twisted her chest hard with her pliers-like hands. Shen Yazi felt so painful that he wanted to scold his mother. This old godly woman, must she be crazy? She wanted to push him away, but Mrs. Wang's hands were so strong that she couldn't push her away. Instead, she pinched her hard several times. Hey, Sanjiniang, you have something to say, so why are you still hitting people? Aunt Li hurriedly came over and tried to break up the fight. That's right, we all know how Yao Niang behaves in daily life, but the scolding you gave Sanjin Niang was too unpleasant. Several other women who couldn't stand it also came forward to stop him. Mrs. Wang swallowed a mouthful of thick phlegm and said, "What are you talking about? This naughty hooves is flirting with people everywhere. How can she be honest without a beating? I have to teach her to be good today." Several people were disgusted by her, and while they were avoiding it, Mrs. Wang tore the backpack off Shen Yazi's back and trampled it to pieces along with the medicinal materials she used to conceal it. How can you be a doctor like this? I think you are just using the name of a doctor to get around. Original Mrs. Wang pulled Shen Yazi's hair, but she couldn't break free for a moment. She was so angry that she threw her over her shoulder and slammed Mrs. Wang to the ground, taking the opportunity to save her own hair. Ouch, my old waist. Mrs. Wang fell so hard that she couldn't get up for a long time. Qingbao saw his mother being bullied, his little face bulged with anger. He rushed over like a cannonball and gave Mrs. Wang a hard blow. Bad guy. I'll beat you. I told you to bully my mother. Mrs. Wang's drooping triangular eyes cast a sinister light. You little without a father. You still dare to hit me? I will teach you a lesson today, old lady. Slap towards Qingbao, Shen Yazi became angry. He kicked Qingbao behind and said, "Damn old woman. If you dare to touch Qingbao, I will fight with you." Mrs. Wang was frightened by her cold and cruel eyes. She reacted and lay down on the ground, crying and howling, "It's unreasonable. You have ruined my 3 golds, you little bitch. You're still bullying me, an old woman, so you're going to be struck by lightning." Shen Yazi sneered, "Li Sanjin? I've never seen him before. Don't slander anyone here." Aunt Li echoed, Sanjin Niang, Yao Niang usually doesn't go anywhere except to treat people and go to the mountains to collect medicines. How come you have anything to do with Sanjin? Don't think that Yao Niang is soft-tempered and go there on purpose. Dirty water was thrown on her. Others also helped, that's right, we don't know what kind of virtue Sanjin is. He drinks, gambles, and wanders around all day long. Maybe he got injured in a fight. You still want to take advantage of the opportunity to rely on Yao Niang. These villagers have all been favored by the Yao Niang. She usually treats people and only charges a nominal consultation fee, so everyone remembers her. When they see Mrs. Wang acting mischievously, they all stand beside her. This side. Shen Yizi couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. The situation is one-sided. How can Mrs. Wang still be able to make waves? With a sinister look at Shen Yizi, she got up, patted her and left. This little bitch, she will take her in sooner or later. Qingbao was so frightened by her eyes that she hugged Shen Yizi's legs tightly. She was heartbroken. Old woman, if you dare to scare her little baby, she will get back this debt sooner or later. Seeing that there was no excitement to be seen, the crowd gradually dispersed. Aunt Li and several other women helped clean up the yard and comforted her before leaving. Shen Yizi carried Qingbao into the house. The little guy's expression suddenly became fierce. He raised his fist and waved, I'll beat you. I'll beat you. I told you to bully my mother. This girl's fierce look made her feel soft and sour. She wrapped his little fist in her palm, hugged his little body and swayed gently, leaning her side against his head. Qingbao, it's okay. Mother has beaten the bad guys away, don't be afraid anymore. Under her gentle comfort, Qingbao's mood gradually calmed down. His head fell softly on her shoulder and he yawned like milk. He seemed to be sleepy. Baby, let's go to sleep. Mother is going to make some delicious food first. I'll call you when it's ready. Shen Yizi gently laid him on the bed and kissed him on his forehead, face, and nose. Seeing that the little guy was completely asleep, she carefully pulled her fingers out of his little hand. She entered the space and came out with a pheasant and several eggs in her hand. The pheasant was caught in a trap, and she put a few earthworms dipped in the spirit spring into it. Not only did she catch the pheasant, but she also caught a fat striped rat snake. This kind of snake is non-venomous and will definitely be delicious after being treated. Shen Yizi first cleaned the pheasant, divided it into 2 halves, and cut 1 half into large pieces. After passing through the oil, he continued to stir-fry. When the meat pieces were half cooked, he added water, ginger, wild garlic, star anise, spices such as fennel. Cover the pot and simmer. Put the other half into a clay pot, add water and place it in the corner of the stove to simmer. Use the firewood in the stove to slowly heat it. The soup cooked in this way is rich and delicious. Even if you only add a little salt, it still tastes good. Yao Niang learned this from Aunt Li. Simmering the soup in this way is not only fragrant, but also saves firewood. Don't worry about it in the middle. Just add a handful of wood chips from time to time when the stove fire is about to go out to keep the stove fire going out. She made a steamed egg out of a few bird eggs. Steamed eggs are best for children. When the braised chicken pieces were almost cooked, she added chopped yam into them. After the meal was ready, Shen Yizi filled a large bowl of chicken and sent it to Aunt Li's house. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 7. Yao Niang was rescued by her, and she has taken good care of her in recent years, so the two families are very close to each other on weekdays. If Aunt Li cooks something delicious at home, she will definitely bring a bowl over. She also says it is for Qingbao, so Yao Niang cannot refuse. Now that she has made delicious food, she naturally wants to repay her. Aunt Li's house was also having dinner. Li Chuntao saw her and hurriedly came over to greet her. Sister, you are here. Have you eaten? If not, just eat some at my house. Shen Yizi handed the bowl over. No, but I've already made it. I'm lucky today and caught a pheasant in the trap. I'll send a bowl over for you to try. Ah, there is meat to eat, it smells so good. Li Chuntao started salivating just by smelling the smell. Aunt Li said angrily, this girl doesn't know any manners at all, why don't you thank your sister quickly? Shen Yizi waved his hand and said, thank you, Auntie, King Bao is still waiting for me at home. I'll go back now. Li Da-chun, who had been silent until now, raised his head. He didn't look back until she walked out of the yard, muttering about eating rice. A piece of chicken fell into the bowl. Li Chuntao gnawed on the meat. Brother, don't just eat. Try the braised yam chicken nuggets that my sister made. It's delicious. This is not an exaggeration, but it is really delicious. Needless to say about the chicken, the yam powder is crispy and the gravy is completely soaked in, making it taste even better than meat. And the soup, she felt that just by mixing the soup with rice, she could eat 2 big bowls of rice. Shen Yizi was walking on the way home when he saw Qingbao standing by the door from a distance, holding the door frame and looking eagerly. When he saw her, his eyes lit up and he ran over. Mother. She caught him and hugged him. The baby is awake, are you hungry? We have meat to eat today. Are you happy? Eat meat. Qingbao was really happy. At the dinner table, a large bowl was filled with braised yam and chicken nuggets. There was also a bowl of tender bird egg custard in front of Qingbao. Shen Yizi ordered a few green onions on top. The room is filled with the smell of meat. Shen Yizi poured a spoonful of soup into King Bao's bowl, picked out the chicken legs, chopped the meat on them, and mixed them together. Okay, it's time to eat. Qingbao couldn't wait for a long time. He scooped up a big spoonful of rice and put it in his mouth, stuffing his cheeks until they were bulging. He couldn't be too cute. Looking at Qingbao eating so deliciously, Shen Yizi, who was already hungry, had a huge appetite and even mixed the soup with rice. In the end, there was not much meat left, but the soup was almost at the bottom. Ah, so full, the 2 women, who had eaten and drank enough, lay down on the chairs together. Qingbao put his little hands on her belly. Mother, let me rub your belly. Baby, you are so considerate. Mommy loves you so much. Shen Yizi held his face and kissed him hard, making a loud sound. Qingbao also came over to kiss her. Baby loves mother too. This is simply a sweet critical hit. Shen Yizi's eyes suddenly became hot, and he felt the urge to cry. I made a cup of mint tea with spiritual spring water, and you and I drank it 1 sip at a time. After lying on the chair for a while, Shen Yizi got up, cleared the dining table, washed the dishes, and boiled a large pot of hot water. Wash away the fragrance. Shen Yizi lifted the hot water into the space, poured it into the wooden basin, stripped himself and Qingbao naked, and stepped into the wooden basin with him in his arms. The wooden basin is not very deep, less than 2 palms high. It was very different from the big wooden barrels she imagined ancient people used to bathe in. I think so. Taking a bath in a big wooden bucket costs a lot of water, so only rich people can afford it. But she believes that she will soon become a rich person. She wants to lead a beautiful life with money and leisure with Qingbao. Hu Qingbao breathed into her waist. Baby, what are you doing? Hu, it doesn't hurt anymore. Qingbao carefully touched the bruise on her waist. That was pinched out by Mrs. Wang before. There are many other things on her body. When she thought of that old godly woman, Shen Yizi was so angry that she wanted to hit someone, but she suppressed the emotion. She is a mother now and cannot give the baby a bad image. Mother, it doesn't hurt. Shen Yizi held Qingbao on his lap and washed his little hands and feet. There is also a little but. Children are really tiny everywhere, so cute that they make your teeth itch, and you want to take a bite. Shen Yizi thought and did the same. Of course, she was not willing to put in the effort and just tightened it loosely. Qingbao was tickled by her and burst into giggles, feeling extremely happy. Looking at his smile, Shen Yizi felt that nothing in the world could be more beautiful than this. Children all like to play in water, and King Bao is no exception. Even after taking a bath, he still wants to stay in the water and refuses to get up. Shen Yizi could only continue to heat water inside to prevent him from catching a cold. Although the space has always been warm as spring, I am just worried about what might happen. Finally, the little guy was tired from playing and felt sleepy. His little head was pounding little by little. Shen Yizi dressed him, put him on the bamboo mat aside, and covered him with a quilt. As for her, she is still busy. The medicinal materials collected during the day are still fresh, as if they had just left the soil, and some of them have even taken root directly. She divided the small land in the space into pieces, planted medicinal herbs, and poured spiritual spring water. Then, he drank a glass of spiritual spring water and started exercising. She had long discovered that this body was much weaker than the average person. But it's no wonder. Anyone who is seriously injured and soaked in water for so long will leave behind the root of the disease. Later, after giving birth to Qingbao, I failed to take good care of her during the confinement period, and my body was completely damaged. Otherwise, how could she have been grabbed by Mrs. Wang and an old woman before and not be able to break free? According to her physical condition in her previous life, she could immobilize Mrs. Wang with one finger. Now, while taking supplements, she also needs to exercise more to make her body stronger. Otherwise, how to protect Qingbao? Furthermore, what happened during the day greatly increased her sense of crisis. The strength displayed by the handsome man in black, as well as the ferocious beast attracted by the spiritual spring, all show that this world is unusual. Materialism and the like are no longer feasible. She has to increase her strength as soon as possible. There is obviously not much hope in practicing. However, she is not only good at healing demons, she also has knowledge in the field of poisons. But now the world has changed, and the pharmacological system she originally mastered may no longer be applicable. She first had to compare and verify the pharmacology of the two worlds. Keep the same ones, find alternatives for the different ones, and experiment with the unfamiliar ones. When she masters the art of healing poison in this world, no matter how advanced her martial arts skills are, she will have to kneel before her. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 8. In the early morning, Shen Yizi opened the window, and the green and bright mountains suddenly came into view. The light and misty mist flowed slowly, seeming to cover the mountains with a layer of gauze. The fresh air with a hint of sweetness is inhaled into the lungs, and then spit out, the entire chest seems to be purified. Shen Yizi drank a glass of spiritual spring water as usual and started running around the house. Her house is located at the end of the village, near the foot of the mountain. It was abandoned by its owner because it was often visited by wild beasts. Because of this, the surroundings seemed very empty. The area where she exercises is quite large. The grass was dotted with crystal dewdrops, and after running a few laps, her trouser legs and the tops of her feet were wet. After the exercise, the sun has completely risen, shooting golden light from between the clouds, giving the clouds a golden edge. Shen Yizi stood for a while facing the warm morning sun and calmed down his breath. Then he returned home and started to wash up and make breakfast. The earthen pot of chicken soup she put into the stove yesterday was now simmering. As soon as she opened the lid, a rich aroma suddenly came out. She cooked a pot of noodles with chicken soup, then added a handful of tender spinach and a handful of chopped green onions. The taste was simply amazing. Her cooking skills are obviously of an ordinary level, but the ingredients here are all natural and pollution-free, and with the blessing of spiritual spring water, the food she makes is simply beautiful to a certain extent. Shen Yizi scooped up a bowl of noodles and cut the noodles into pieces for Qingbao's little spoon to scoop up. King Bao's little mouth was chattering and he was eating obediently and quickly, without any coaxing from her. In the end, he not only ate all the noodles, but also drank every drop of the soup. Then he looked at the empty bowl and actually wanted another bowl. Shen Yizi couldn't help but feel funny, and touched his bulging belly. "Baby, you have to hold on if you eat any more. Be good, and my mother will prepare something delicious for you at noon." "Delicious?" "Yes, it's delicious." Satisfied, Qingbao slipped off the stool and ran to the yard to play. Shen Yizi went into the kitchen, processed the striped rat snake, chopped the meat into fine pieces, added egg liquid and flour, and kneaded it into a loose dough, then squeezed the dough into small and put them into the oil pan. "Fried inside." "That's right, she is going to make snake meat croquettes for Qingbao to eat as a snack. Put it in the space, and he can take it and eat at any time when he is hungry." Then, she heated the can of chicken soup and the stewed yam chicken nuggets that she had not finished last night, made another pot of rice, formed rice that were easy to eat, and put them all into the space. Seeing that it was almost midnight, Shen Yizi put the medicine basket on his back, took King Bao with him, locked the door and went into the mountain. One is to collect medicine, and the other is to give food to the handsome man in black. Originally, she didn't want to care about him at all, but yesterday she checked her own pulse and found no symptoms of poisoning. There are two possibilities. One is that he poisoned her very cleverly and she could not detect it. The other is that he simply lied to himself and did not actually poison her. The two possibilities were between 50 and 50, Shen Yizi couldn't be sure at all, so for the sake of her own life, she had better go. By the river, 3 or 5 women were washing clothes on the bluestone slabs on the shore. Mrs. Wang is also here. A woman with a long face and a flat nose asked in a very gossipy manner, "Auntie, did the medicine lady really destroy Sanjin's life?" "No. Pity me Sanjin, such an honest child, but she was seduced by that bitch's hoof. It was obviously her shamelessness to seduce my son, but now she turns her back and refuses to recognize him." Mrs. Wang beat her clothes hard with a mallet, as if she thought those clothes were Shen Yizi. The woman with the flat nose became more and more enthusiastic. "I'm just saying, don't look at the disfigurement of that drug lady, in fact, I still feel restless. Who are you showing me when you dress seductively all day long?" Mrs. Wang seemed to have found an ally in an instant. "Do you think so too? As soon as she appeared in our village, I knew she was not a good person. The two of them got together, blah blah blah, and poured all kinds of dirty water on Shen Yizi, as if this would bring great satisfaction. Finally, the woman with a flat nose suggested in a low voice, she has broken Sanjin's roots, so she has to be Sanjin's wife and serve him. As long as she enters your house, she is not just left to be rounded and squashed by you. When the time comes, if you hit her and scold her, it would be extremely unfilial if she dares to say anything back." Mr. Wang became more and more excited the more she heard it. Why didn't she think of it at the time? As soon as she enters the door, she has to be treated as a cow or a horse. All the money earned is handed over. As for that fatherless bastard, if you sell it directly, you can still get some money. But this is very noble, so I'm afraid he won't agree. Auntie, if we do this, we are not afraid that she will not obey. The woman with the flat nose gave her advice. This woman's surname is Zhang. It seems that she was also favored by Yao Niang. When she had irregular menstruation, Yao Niang cured her. In order to thank Yao Niang, her husband Li Chang'an helped her with manual labor several times. Ms. Zhang always suspected that Li Chang'an was seduced by Yao Niang. She didn't say anything, but she felt angry in her heart. Later, it developed to the point where she disliked Yao Niang no matter what. I wish she was unlucky. Shen Yizi didn't know this. She was collecting herbs in the forest at this time. She was lucky today. She picked a lot of medicinal materials along the way and also came across a vintage ginseng. After picking ginseng, the sun was already high, and Shenyazi hurried to where he was yesterday. It's just that I didn't see anyone when I arrived at the place. He couldn't have left, right? When Gu Swiding came back, he saw Shenyazi squatting by the waterside fishing. He dropped a wild boar he was holding on the ground. Shenyazi was startled by the dull sound, and turned around to see him standing behind him. There was a trace of blood on his cheek, but instead of ruining the overall beauty, it actually added a bit of a cold and wild flavor. When he looked over, Shenyazi's heartbeat was a little uncontrollable again. She picked up the medicine basket and walked over. While taking out the food, she said, "By the way, my surname is Shen." "Shenyazi, I wonder what I call you." Gu Swiding only said one word, "Gu." Shenyazi, who had his back turned to him, rolled his eyes. "Will he die if he says one more word? Here, Mr. Gu, let's eat." Shenyazi pointed to the food placed on the big stone. A dish of vermicelli and pheasant soup, a dish of snake meat croquettes, and a few rice in the bowl. Gu Swiding walked over, picked up the rice ball and took a bite. It was fragrant and sweet, and had a richer texture than the tribute Beijing rice. Pheasant vermicelli soup, the meat is tender and mellow, the soup is rare and not greasy at all, it is delicious and fragrant. The vermicelli is smooth and light, and tastes even better than shark fin. The fried meatballs are also fresh and juicy, elastic but not sticky, making them addictive. 2 dishes and 1 meal seemed simple, but it was more to his taste than the delicious dishes that the imperial chef worked hard to make. Gu Swiding couldn't help but glance at Shenyazi. Shenyazi sat on a stone, holding his chin in his hands and watching him eat. Chewed slowly, without making any sound, and every move was calm and graceful. This is the first time she has seen someone eat so beautifully. Of course, the main reason is that his face is so lethal. Seeing him looking over, he couldn't help but sit up straight. "What's wrong? It's not to your liking. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome." Author, 955. Chapter 9. Gu Swiding shook his head. "Miss Shen's cooking skills are superb, I'm very satisfied." As soon as he finished speaking, another pill fell into his stomach. "What are these meatballs made of? They taste very good." "Snake meat." As soon as Shen Yiji said the words, his expression suddenly changed, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Gu Swiding has never eaten snakes and rats. Everyone in Beijing, whether in the mansion or the palace, knew about his taboo, but he didn't expect that he would get into trouble here. He only felt a turbulence in his stomach, as if there was a snake crawling inside. Unable to bear it any longer, he rushed to a big tree and opened his mouth to vomit. Are you okay?" Shenyazi hurriedly ran over and patted his back. Gu Swiding usually didn't like being touched by others, but now he was too busy vomiting to care about her. After vomiting, he took out the handkerchief and wiped his mouth, then walked to the stream and rinsed his mouth. After all the trouble, although his stomach was empty, he had no intention of eating any more. Shenyazi had a guess. "You don't eat snake meat?" "Snake meat is quite delicious, especially since it is spring and the snake meat is very tender." Under his deep gaze, she had to shut up. "Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I won't get you snake meat next time. If you have any other taboos, please tell me." Gu Swiding lowered his eyes and said, "I won't eat snakes or rats." "Then you really missed out on a lot of delicious food." Seeing him sitting back without saying a word, Shenyazi felt a little uneasy. "Ahem, did you forget something?" Gu Swiding opened his eyes and said, "Open your mouth." As soon as Shenyazi opened his mouth, a pill popped up and rolled down his throat. She originally wanted to take the opportunity to taste it so that she could break down the ingredients of the antidote, but her plan failed. Okay, if nothing happens, I'll leave. Bring the wild boar with you. Only then did Shenyazi realize that the wild boar was brought to her. However, does he overestimate himself? With her small body, can she drag a wild boar as big as a hill? Noticing that she hadn't left for a while, Goose Whitting opened his eyes again and saw her standing next to the wild boar with a frown on her face, seemingly thinking about something. It's because he didn't think enough about it? He walked straight over and said, "Let's go, I'll help you take you to the bottom of the mountain." "Thank you," Shenyazi smiled brightly, her eyes shining brightly. At that moment, people could ignore the ugly scars on her face. Goose Whitting looked away, picked up the wild boar with one hand and walked ahead. Shenyazi hurriedly followed. "Why are you walking in such a hurry? Do you know the way?" Goose Whitting paused, slowed down, and walked side by side with her. Along the way, Shenyazi chatted with him casually, trying to find out more about him and get to know him better. In the end, not much information was found, but she was tricked into telling a lot of things, basically revealing the original owner's secrets. She couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. She didn't expect this man to look cold and indifferent, but he didn't expect him to be quite scheming. Unknown to Goose Whitting, he was labeled as a scheming man again. After he understood Shenyazi's situation more or less, he let go of his wariness towards her. When they were almost at the foot of the mountain, Shenyi knew, "Okay, just put it here. My home is not far from here. I'll just ask someone to help me carry it back. It shouldn't be convenient for you to show up, right?" Goose Whitting glanced at the village below, nodded slightly, "Put down the wild boar, you can continue coming here tomorrow." After he left, Shenyazi waved his hand and took the wild boar into the space. Such a big wild boar is enough for her and Qingbao to eat for a long time. And it seems that Gu Mainan will not leave soon. Shenyazi is in a good mood thinking about seeing his beautiful face again tomorrow. As soon as she entered the village, her beautiful mood disappeared. In the fields, under the eaves, and on the roadside, the villagers looked at her with strange eyes. Shenyazi frowned and returned home. Li Chuntao, who had been waiting at the door of her courtyard, ran over and said, "Sister, it's not good. Let's talk about it first." Shenyazi didn't worry too much. As long as nothing happens to Qingbao, everything else is nothing. At this moment, Qingbao was waiting in the medicine basket behind her. After coming down the mountain, she removed him from the space. Li Chuntao saw that her face was calm, and her anxious mood eased a lot. What happened? After sitting down, Shenyazi poured her a cup of tea. Li Chuntao drank it. "Huh? Why does my sister's tea taste better than theirs?" Gurgling, gulping down a big gulp, wiping his mouth, and told the story again. Rumors spread about her in the village at some point, saying that she wanted a man, so she secretly lured Li Sanjin to her house at night and slept with him. As a result, she was too promiscuous and ruined Li Sanjin's life while doing errands. Li Chuntao is a girl who has not yet left the court. It is really difficult to talk about it. Many places have been vaguely mentioned, but who is Shenyazi? It can be inferred from her expression and those vague words. He, you don't need to think about it to know who spread this rumor. Mrs. Wang and Li Sanjin are really nice. Before she could settle the score with them, they started making trouble. It's too long to live. Seeing her sneer, Li Chuntao couldn't help but shrink his neck. He felt that her sister had become a little scary. "Chuntao, I'm fine, don't worry, I will solve the problem. Take this rabbit back." Shenyazi took out a fat grey rabbit from the medicine basket and handed it over. When she came back, she specially took Gu Mainan past the trap. She just went to have a look, but she didn't expect that two rabbits were actually caught in the trap. Li Chuntao waved her hands hurriedly, "Sister, you can keep it for yourself and eat it." You can also sell it for money. Such a big rabbit should be worth a lot of money. Shenyazi pushed it over directly. Just take it if I tell you to, it's just a rabbit, and you're being polite to me. Li Chuntao still couldn't resist the temptation of meat and held the rabbit in her arms. After she left, Shenyazi's eyes suddenly turned cold, but when she saw Qingbao who was playing happily with the rabbit, the corners of her lips couldn't help but rise again. At night, after Qingbao fell asleep, Shenyazi entered the space and was surprised to find that the herbs that had been planted before were not only not acclimated to the soil and environment, but also grew very lush and vigorous, and they grew in just one day. Much bigger. It seems that this space also has the function of accelerating growth. In this way, she will have a portable medicine field in the future. The wild boar brought in during the day was lying in a corner of the space. She took a machete and dissected the pig. Meat, bones, blood, internal organs, etc., are placed in piles. Simply handle them and forget about them. You can take them when you want to eat them. They won't get damaged if they are left in space anyway. The blood that fell during the dissection was all absorbed by the black soil in the space, even the dirt she disposed of. It also saved her a lot of effort. After that, Shenyazi began to prepare medicine. An hour later, a bottle of insect-attracting powder came out of the oven. She looked at the medicine bottle and showed an evil smile. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 10. The next morning. A scream that pierced the sky came from Mrs. Wang's house. The neighbors were startled and ran over. What's wrong? What happened so early in the morning? The screams are so weird. When they arrived at the door of Mrs. Wang's house, they were immediately startled. Oh my God, why are there so many bugs? And there are snakes and rats. Let's go, if you get bitten, it will be a big loss. The courtyard walls of Mrs. Wang's house and under the eaves are densely covered with all kinds of snakes, insects, rats, and ants, which can make one's skin crawl. When the villagers heard about it, they all came to watch. They were quite scared at first, but when they saw that those snakes and insects did not crawl around, but only stayed in Mrs. Wang's house, they couldn't help but think about it. Isn't this because you have done something evil and received retribution? It's very possible. Otherwise, why didn't those bugs look for others and just identified their home? I'm not saying that there is no good one in their family. Li Sanjin won't say it. Mrs. Wang is already very old, and she still goes around slandering the reputation of the medicine lady now. God can't stand it. Ms. Zhang, who was hiding in the crowd, originally wanted to retort, but after looking at the snakes, she gave up. In the house, Mrs. Wang and her daughter Li Yinhua hugged each other and jumped in fear because those snakes and insects were crawling around their feet. Mom, get these things away quickly, Li Yinhua screamed. Mrs. Wang is so scared herself, how can she dare to take action? I could only shout outside the yard, who can help me? Someone come and help me quickly dash. Everyone outside heard this and thought that although Mrs. Wang and her family were not doing well, they lived in the same village and couldn't watch them being bitten to death by snakes, right? Li Chang'an wanted to take action, but Madame Zhang held him back. She gouged him out and whispered, "There are many people here. What are you doing? What if you are bitten by a snake? Are you going to abandon our mother? Some of you are begging for food." Hearing this, he couldn't help but hesitate. Other villagers also had the same scruples, so no one came forward for a while. At this time, the village chief came over. He had been through a lot and was not frightened by this scene. "What are you doing standing around? Those snakes are not venomous. If you catch them, you can take them home for extra food. Hurry up, go home and get a sack with iron tongs and get rid of all these things." The village chief is quite authoritative. Since he said this, it must be true. After all, the village chief would definitely not let them die on purpose. The main thing they are afraid of is the snakes. Now that the snakes are not venomous, other rats, insects, and ants are no longer a concern. Immediately, a few enthusiastic men went home and brought sacks of iron pliers, and worked together to remove the snakes and insects. With more people and greater strength, soon the snakes and insects inside and outside the house and courtyard were almost cleared away. It stands to reason that the villagers had helped so much, and Mrs. Wang had to thank them properly. Not to mention paying them, she at least had to entertain them. But she was so stubborn that she poured a bowl of boiled water for everyone. Sent away. This is also the reason why no one was willing to come forward at the beginning. The helpers said nothing and each carried the sacks home. Mrs. Wang doesn't know that this matter is not over yet. The next day, as soon as Li Yinhua opened the door, she burst into a high decibel scream again and slammed the door shut. "Damn girl, what are you crying for?" Mrs. Wang came out unhappy. "Mom, those bugs are here again." Orange Mrs. Wang looked out through the crack in the door and almost fainted. Their house was not very tight, and bugs were getting in through the cracks and corners. The mother and daughter were so frightened that they ran around the house again. This time, after the villagers heard about it, they were unwilling to help at all. Old Mrs. Wang's house has attracted insects twice. She must have done something harmful. We can't get involved again. What if we are implicated? Others feel the same way. So although they were greedy for those snakes, they just watched from the sidelines and did not dare to take action again. The village chief was also helpless about this. He can't force the big guys to help, right? I could only shout into the house through the courtyard door, "Sister-in-law Wang, I think your family has suffered retribution. Think about it quickly, what bad things have you done to bring these things to your door?" When Mrs. Wang heard this, she was not willing to admit it. "Brother, I didn't do anything. I have been honest and clean all my life. How could I do something that is harmful to nature? You have to help me. It's a pity that if you are not afraid of opponents who are like gods, you are afraid of teammates who are like pigs." Li Yinhua, who was frightened, exposed her on the spot. "Mom, didn't you steal Aunt Li's chickens the year before last? And the watermelons from Uncle Chang Zhen's house? Damn girl, shut up." It's a pity that Li Yinhua's words were heard by everyone outside. Normally they only knew that Mrs. Wang was stingy and raised a son and a daughter who were lazy and greedy, but they didn't make any substantial mistakes. They just talked about it in private. Unexpectedly, they turned out to be thieves. Mrs. Zhang was the first to be unable to bear it any longer. She jumped on her feet and cursed, "You old woman. It turns out you stole our watermelon. Chang'an and I sweated so much and worked so hard for those acres of watermelon. It took a lot of effort to grow it, but I couldn't bear to eat it, so you better just steal it from me. You deserve retribution." After the scolding was not enough, she said to everyone again, "Don't you know? Those rumors were spread by Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Li Yinhua. They wanted to ruin Yao Niang's reputation. Let her marry into their family and work as a horse for them, so they came up with this vicious plan. There is no good person in this family of three." Everyone was shocked. At the same time, I am not excited to eat melon. It turns out there is so much more inside information. I just said that Yao Niang is not that kind of person. What kind of person is Li Sanjin? How could she like him? Inside, Mrs. Wang was impatient and began to scold Zhang Kuihua, also known as Mr. Zhang. The two of them exposed each other's shorts, and their private parts were torn apart and spread out in front of everyone. The villagers then realized that these two people were the same as each other. They were just troublemakers who liked to talk behind each other's back and stir up trouble. The village chief was too embarrassed to listen anymore and shouted to Li Chang'an, "Why don't you take your wife back quickly? What a shame." As for Mrs. Wang's family, he didn't bother to take care of it. Anyway, Those snakes and insects couldn't bite anyone, so let them have a headache. This day, Mrs. Wang and Li Yinhua spent the whole day fighting against those snakes and insects. They didn't even bother to eat. How could they have the energy to spread rumors? Shen Yizi was very satisfied after listening to Li Chuntao's live broadcast. Not long after, a nursery rhyme spread in the village. Old Mrs. Wang, your heart is too bad and you are infested by insects. The villagers talked a lot, and after meeting, they said, hey, have you heard? Mrs. Wang and her family. As for the rumors about Shen Yizi, naturally no one mentioned them anymore. After this incident, Mrs. Wang temporarily calmed down, put her tail between her legs, and did not dare to make any more trouble.